The sky over Earth changed on a quiet morning. What began as a bright sunrise soon turned into a strange silver glow. People stopped on the street staring upward as the light spread across the clouds. Airplanes disappeared into the mist. Birds fell silent. Then, out of the sky they came. Giant ships, shining like moving mountains of metal. At first, everyone thought it was a dream, a trick of light, or maybe a new kind of satellite. But when the clouds cleared, the truth became impossible to deny. The ships were not from Earth. They were too vast, too perfect, too alive. Some had shapes like wings, others like floating cities. They covered the world's horizon, stretching from one ocean to another. Within minutes, every screen on Earth, phones, televisions, billboards, even digital watches, flickered with the same image, a tall figure dressed in robes of light. His eyes glowed gold, and behind him stood the symbol of the Zarathian Empire, a force that had ruled the stars for over 10,000 years. His voice echoed through every speaker, calm and cold. "Children of Earth," he said, "your world has been observed. You possess courage, intelligence, and the will to rise. The Emperor offers you a place within the eternal empire. Kneel, and your planet shall prosper. Resist, and your ashes will feed the stars." The words fell like thunder. Around the world, people froze. Some dropped to their knees out of fear. Others screamed. Others whispered prayers. Governments scrambled to respond. Scientists argued if it was real or a mass illusion. But deep down, everyone knew, and it was real. The Empire had come. In a white bunker beneath Geneva, world leaders gathered. Their faces were pale and tired. They had seen the same message, heard the same voice. No one knew how to answer. "We cannot fight them," said one general, slamming his hand on the table. "Their ships are the size of cities. One blast could wipe out the moon." A woman at the far end of the table rose quietly. Her hair was silver, her eyes steady. Dr. Evelyn Ross, the head of the Earth Unity Council. "Once a scientist, now a reluctant leader of humankind. They want us to kneel," she said softly. "That's how it begins. Every world that bowed to them was promised peace. And every one of those worlds lost its soul." Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly. She knew the history of the Zarathian Empire. They had enslaved hundreds of planets, stripping them of freedom, turning entire species into servants. They ruled through fear, and no one had ever said no to them. One of the younger commanders looked at her, eyes full of doubt. "If we refuse," he said, "they'll destroy us." Evelyn turned toward the massive window overlooking the mountains. Outside, the silver ships shimmered like ghosts. Her heart felt heavy, yet strangely clear. "Maybe," she whispered, "but at least we'll die standing." That night, the Empire's envoy descended to Earth. His ship landed in the ruins of the old city of Rome. He was tall and beautiful, his skin like polished stone, his armor shining with stars. Crowds gathered as drones recorded every moment. Soldiers surrounded him, nervous but silent. He raised a hand. "Bring me your leader," he said. "Bring me the one who dares speak for this planet." The crowd parted as Evelyn walked forward. She stood unarmed, dressed in plain white, her boots dusty from travel. The envoy looked at her with something between pity and amusement. "You are brave, little human," he said. "But bravery will not save you. The Empire is eternal. Worlds that bow to us flourish. Worlds that resist disappear." Evelyn lifted her chin. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "Then we'll vanish together." The envoy blinked, surprised. "You do not understand your place." "Oh, I understand it perfectly," she replied. "We were born free, and we'll die free. Tell your emperor, Earth will not kneel." The silence that followed was heavy, almost sacred. The envoy's expression turned to ice. He pointed to the sky, and the air crackled with energy. "Then your world will learn fear," he said coldly. "You have chosen extinction." He vanished in a flash of light, leaving behind only the echo of his words. The crowd broke into cries, some terrified, others proud. For the first time in human history, Earth had spoken not as nations, but as one voice, and that voice had said no. That night, as the ships repositioned themselves across the orbit, Earth's skies glowed red with the reflection of their engines. The people of Earth watched from their rooftops and shelters, hearts beating with both terror and defiance. Some wept, some prayed, some sang. And somewhere deep in the mountains, Evelyn stood before a world map glowing with red lights. Targets? Cities, defenses. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "Let them come." The air outside rumbled as the first lightning flashed across the heavens, not from any storm, but from the approaching war. The battle for Earth had begun. The morning after the envoy's departure, the world woke to silence. No birds sang. No wind moved. Only the sky glowed faintly with the light of the Empire's fleet. The ships hung there like ancient gods, vast and terrible, covering the sun with their metallic wings. People across the world stared upward, some in awe, some in fear. News broadcasts repeated the same message again and again. The Zarathian Empire demands surrender. The countdown has begun. Governments argued through sleepless nights. Military leaders debated impossible strategies. Scientists tried to decode the alien signals, searching for weakness. But deep inside, everyone knew the truth. There was no weakness. The Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. Each planet that resisted had been erased. Yet even as fear spread like wildfire, something else began to grow. Defiance. In the underground command center beneath the Andes Mountains, Dr. Evelyn Ross stood surrounded by holographic maps. Red dots blinked across every continent, the Empire's ships in low orbit. Her staff looked tired, frightened, and pale. General Huo slammed his fist on the table. They're everywhere. Their ships are using gravity fields to block our satellites. We can't even see what they're doing. Then we'll use our eyes, Evelyn replied. Humans survived before satellites. We'll survive again. Her calm voice cut through the chaos. She looked around the room, at soldiers, engineers, doctors, and young recruits who had never held a gun before. Every one of them carried the same question in their eyes. Can we really win this? Evelyn didn't answer with promises. She only said, we don't need to win. We just need to stand. The words spread through the bunker like a spark. Someone whispered them over the comms. Within hours, the same phrase echoed through every defense station, every city, every hidden base across the globe. We don't need to win. We just need to stand. The first warning came at dusk. A sound rolled through the sky, deep and thunderous, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Then light poured down from the heavens. The Empire's ships were charging their weapons. People ran to shelters, clutching their children, their eyes wide with disbelief. In Paris, a bright beam of silver light struck. In an instant, the entire city was gone. Not burned, erased. The ground where it stood turned to smooth glass. New Delhi followed next. Then Cape Town. The Empire called it a demonstration of mercy. But instead of submission, something else happened. Across the world, humans began to fight back. Fighter jets rose from hidden bases. Submarines launched missiles into the sky. Old defense satellites reactivated with desperate power. Drones swarmed like angry bees, striking at the Empire's ships. Most were destroyed instantly, but a few got through. A single explosion near a Zarathian vessel sent pieces of burning metal raining down into the Pacific. For the first time, the Empire bled. Inside her bunker, Evelyn watched the data unfold. Her eyes glimmered with both sorrow and pride. They think they can break us, she whispered. But they don't understand what it means to be human. A young technician turned to her, voice shaking. Ma'am, we've lost contact with London, but we're getting something strange from Mars base, a message. Put it through, Evelyn said. The screen flickered. A face appeared. A tired astronaut with dust on his helmet. Behind him, the Martian horizon glowed red. We heard the call, he said. We're with you, Earth. We'll send what we can. Weapons, data, anything. Just don't stop fighting. Evelyn felt a lump in her throat. We won't, she said softly. Not until the stars are ours again. The Empire, watching from their capital ship, could not understand this madness. On every other world, fear had brought surrender. But Earth fought like a creature cornered and burning with life. Primitive, one Zarathian commander hissed. Their weapons are toys. Their courage will end soon. But the Emperor himself was silent. He had seen something in Evelyn Ross's eyes. Something he had not seen in 1,000 years of conquest. A kind of fire that no empire could extinguish. Let them fight, the Emperor said at last. When their hope dies, they will kneel willingly. Days turned into weeks. Cities fell, but others rose. People learned to fight with what they had, and with iron, with code, with courage. Old rival nations shared supplies. Soldiers protected strangers. Even children carried messages through ruined streets. And every night Evelyn would step outside the bunker and look at the stars. The Empire's ships still glowed there, cold and distant. But she no longer felt afraid. She whispered quietly to herself, "You can take our cities. You can take our sky, but you will never take our spirit. Far above, the Emperor's ships continued to prepare for their final strike, a blow meant to end Earth forever. Yet below, in the shadows of the wounded world, something powerful was rising, the unbroken heart of humanity. The war for freedom had truly begun. The war had lasted for months now. Earth was a scarred planet, burning and bleeding but still alive. Cities lay in ruins. The oceans carried ash. The night sky was no longer filled with stars. Only the dark silhouettes of the Empire's ships like shadows waiting to swallow the last light of humanity. Yet, beneath that darkness, life still moved. In underground shelters, humans built weapons from the wreckage. In destroyed towns, people shared food and stories. Across the broken continents, a quiet fire of hope began to glow stronger with each passing day. Dr. Evelyn Ross hadn't slept in days. She stood in the command center beneath the Andes Mountains, staring at dozens of screens showing a dying world. Every blinking red dot meant a battle, a loss or a memory that could never return. Her voice was hoarse, her eyes heavy, but her spirit remained unbroken. General Huo entered the room, his uniform torn and dusty. "They've surrounded us," he said. "Their fleet now covers both poles. If they launch another strike, we won't survive it." Evelyn looked up at him slowly. "Then we need to end this before they do." The general frowned. "End it? With what, Evelyn?" "We fired every missile, every drone, every weapon we ever built. What else is left?" A faint smile touched her tired face. "Something they'll never expect. Our minds." Weeks earlier, Earth's last surviving scientists had been working on a desperate idea, a weapon not made of bullets or fire, but of code. They called it the Quantum Seed, a living virus designed to infect the Empire's ships and rewrite their systems from the inside. It was risky. It could fail. But it was their final hope. Evelyn walked into the research chamber where glowing screens lit up the faces of her team. Among them was Dr. Amir Patel, a soft-spoken genius who had lost his family when London was destroyed. He looked up as Evelyn entered. "It's ready," he said quietly. "If we release it, it will travel through their communication network. Once it takes root, the virus will spread faster than light itself. It will twist their code, confuse their weapons, maybe even turn their ships against each other." Evelyn nodded. "And what happens to us?" Amir hesitated. "If it spreads too far, it could affect our own systems. Our satellites, our data, everything. It might wipe out what's left of human technology." Evelyn looked at the map of Earth glowing before her. So many red marks. So much pain. "Then it's a fair price," she whispered. "If our machines die but our people live, it's worth it." That night, under a shattered sky, the plan began. From the Andes base, a single signal was sent into space, a pulse of light carrying the quantum seed. It traveled through the Empire's surveillance grid, unseen and unstoppable. For hours, nothing happened. Then, one by one, strange things began to occur. An Imperial cruiser suddenly turned off its engines and drifted away. Another began firing on its own fleet. A third lost control and crashed into the ocean, lighting up the sea with flames. In the command center, cheers erupted. People hugged each other. Tears ran down faces covered in dust and sweat. "They're falling apart," shouted a young officer. "It's working." Evelyn closed her eyes, her heart pounding with disbelief. "No," she said softly. "It's beginning." Above Earth, chaos spread through the Empire's fleet. The once perfect order of their formations dissolved into madness. Ships collided. Commanders screamed through broken channels and systems melted under the virus's reach. The Emperor's generals tried to stop it, but it was too late. The virus didn't just destroy, it evolved. It learned, adapted, and grew. It began to move beyond the fleet, slipping into the Empire's communication lines, spreading to other worlds. The Emperor watched from his throne ship, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. "What have they done?" he roared. "How can such a primitive race defy the eternal Empire?" No one dared answer. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Zarathian Empire felt fear. Back on Earth, the people watched the sky turn bright with fire. Ships fell like meteors, breaking apart as they entered the atmosphere. For the first time since the invasion began, the night sky belonged to Earth again. Evelyn stood outside the bunker, cold wind brushing her face. She could see the burning trails across the heavens, a sight both terrifying and beautiful. General Huo joined her. "It's over, isn't it?" he asked. Evelyn shook her head slowly. "No, it's never over that easily. But this," she looked at the glowing sky, "this is our moment. The universe will remember that Earth fought back." The two stood in silence, watching the heavens burn. Above them, the once invincible fleet of the Zarathian Empire was breaking apart. But far beyond the solar system, the virus kept spreading, to their colonies, their worlds, their machines. The Emperor's wrath would soon fall again, stronger than ever. But for now, the people of Earth had won something greater than a battle. They had won hope. And hope, Evelyn knew, was the one weapon the Empire could never destroy. The virus spread faster than anyone could have imagined. Within days, the mighty Zarathian fleet above Earth was in chaos. Ships drifted out of formation, some spinning helplessly, others turning their guns on each other. What once looked like a wall of power now looked like a storm tearing itself apart. From the command center deep in the Andes, Dr. Evelyn Ross watched in silence. On the screen before her, fire bloomed across the black of space. The impossible was happening and the Empire was falling apart. Around her, people cheered, cried, hugged one another. But Evelyn didn't celebrate. Her eyes stayed fixed on the flickering images, her heart heavy with both relief and dread. "They'll come back," she whispered. "Empires always do." General Huo turned to her. "You think they'll send more fleets?" She nodded. "The Emperor will not forgive this humiliation. We struck his pride, not just his army. He'll burn the galaxy if he has to." Far away at the heart of the Zarathian Empire, the Emperor sat on his throne of glass and gold. His palace was carved from a dying star, and around him floated the High Council, generals, scientists, and priests who had ruled the galaxy beside him for centuries. One by one, they gave their reports, their voices trembling. The fleets in Sector 4, gone. Communications with Vorn Prime, lost. Entire colonies reporting rebellion. The virus has reached the central data nexus. The Emperor's golden eyes glowed with rage. His voice thundered like the sound of collapsing worlds. "You speak of viruses and rebellion, but I see weakness in yours." He rose to his feet, his cloak flowing like smoke. "Send everything! Every fleet, every ship, every soldier. Burn the infected worlds. Burn them all, even our own if you must. The name Earth will be erased from history." The chamber shook as he shouted. His generals bowed, fear twisting their faces. They had seen him destroy planets for less. The command was given, and the greatest armada ever assembled in the history of the galaxy began its march toward Earth. On the battered blue planet, people watched as the new invasion began. Thousands of ships emerged from the darkness like a sea of fire. Their engines glowed crimson, their weapons charged with fury. "This is it," said General Huo quietly. "The end." Evelyn didn't reply. She stared at the glowing dots on the radar, more ships than the human mind could count. And yet, even with death coming, she felt no fear. There was only calm, like the silence before a final storm. She pressed the global channel button and spoke, her voice reaching every city, every shelter, every surviving soul on Earth. "People of Earth," she began softly. "The Empire returns to destroy what they could not control. They believe this planet will kneel. But we will not. You are not fighting for victory anymore. You are fighting to remind the universe what it means to be human. Hold your ground. Hold your heart. And whatever happens, stand." Her words spread across the planet, carried by broken transmitters, whispered in bunkers, echoed through ruins. Farmers picked up rifles. Children hid in tunnels, holding their parents' hands. Old soldiers looked up at the stars, ready for one last battle. Then the sky fell. The Empire's ships opened fire. Massive beams cut through the clouds, burning entire regions in seconds. Mountains turned to glass. The seas boiled. The sound was like 1,000 storms screaming at once, and yet Earth fought back. Every remaining weapon, missiles, lasers, even old cannons, was fired into the sky. Drones swarmed, space mines detonated, and plasma storms tore through the atmosphere. The virus still worked inside the enemy's systems, twisting their controls, confusing their targeting. Some ships crashed into each other. Others exploded mid-flight. Above the flames, the world looked like a storm of fire and light. In the middle of the chaos, Evelyn stood at the command table, her eyes locked on one glowing symbol, the Emperor's flagship. It was descending, larger than any city, burning through the clouds like a falling god. General Huo's voice cracked. That's him. The Emperor himself. Evelyn's voice was calm. Then it ends here. She entered the final code into the console, a sequence built to overload the quantum seed. It would destroy every infected system, including their own. But it might also take the Emperor with it. Are you sure? Huo asked. Evelyn smiled faintly. Freedom always has a price. She pressed the button. A beam of white light erupted from the mountains and struck the Emperor's ship. For a brief second, the entire sky turned pure white, brighter than the sun. Then came silence. When the light faded, the Emperor's flagship was gone. Nothing remained but drifting ash and falling sparks. The other ships stopped firing. Some fled. Some simply died, their engines shutting down forever. Evelyn fell to her knees, exhausted, tears running down her face. Around her, the control room shook, lights flickering out one by one. It's over, whispered General Huo. By God, it's really over. But Evelyn shook her head weakly. No, not yet. The virus, it's still moving. It's going to spread beyond us now. Beyond Earth, her words were true. Even as Earth went silent, the virus leaped across space, through the Empire's network, through their colonies, through every world that once bowed before them. The seeds of rebellion had taken root. In the cold of space, as the Emperor's empire began to burn from within, one message kept repeating from Earth. Simple, defiant, eternal. We are the children of Earth. We do not kneel. And across 1,000 worlds, slaves and soldiers alike looked to the stars and whispered the same words. The fire had begun. The war was finally quiet. The skies above Earth, once filled with the glowing rage of the Empire, now carried only drifting wreckage, silent, broken, and cold. The last of the Zarathian ships had fallen. Their weapons no longer glowed. Their voices no longer threatened. Only the stars remained, watching the planet they had tried to destroy and failed. The people of Earth stepped out from the ashes. Their faces were tired, their hands black with dust, but their eyes were alive. For the first time in generations, the sun shone without the shadow of warships. Dr. Evelyn Ross stood on the balcony of the rebuilt Unity Hall. The morning breeze brushed her hair as she looked out over the ruins of what had once been a great city. The world was wounded. Bridges collapsed, oceans darkened, forests burned. Yet there was beauty in the silence that followed. It was the sound of freedom. She closed her eyes and whispered, "We are still here." Far beyond the solar system, in the heart of the Zarathian Empire, chaos reigned. The virus from Earth, the quantum seed, had reached their home systems. What began as a small infection had become something unstoppable. One by one, the Empire's machines turned against them. Entire fleets vanished into black holes created by their own weapons. Their communication networks dissolved into static. Their leaders screamed across the stars for help that would never come. On the world of Vorn Prime, once the jewel of the Empire, the sky was burning. Cities collapsed under their own technology. The once proud towers of the Zarathians crumbled like sand. In the streets, the enslaved species they had conquered for centuries rose in rebellion. They tore down the golden banners and raised something new, the symbol of Earth. A circle of blue, wrapped in white light. Everywhere the same message echoed. Broadcast by captured transmitters, the humans fought back. The humans won. You can too. The idea spread faster than the virus. It wasn't just code anymore, it was hope. Back on Earth, Evelyn watched the reports come in. The Empire's losing its colonies, said General Huo. Rebellions everywhere, millions breaking free. Evelyn's lips curved into a faint smile. They thought they could break us, she said softly. Instead, they taught the galaxy to stand. The command center was quiet for a moment. Then someone asked, what now? What happens to us? Evelyn looked out the window. The sky was pale and soft, painted with the light of a new dawn. Now we rebuild, she said, we heal, and we make sure no empire ever rises again. Days turned into months. Slowly, humanity began to rise from the ashes. Farmers returned to the soil, planting seeds in the blackened ground. Children played in the streets where war once raged. Scientists repaired what little technology survived, while artists painted murals of heroes who never came home. Everywhere, people remembered. They remembered the screams, the fire, the fear, but they also remembered the unity. The way strangers became family. The way the world had stood together, not as nations, but as one heart. Evelyn often walked through the ruins alone. She stopped to help rebuild schools, plant trees, and comfort those who had lost loved ones. The people treated her like a legend, but she never saw herself that way. "I was just one voice," she said once to a reporter. "It was the people who saved Earth, not me. The will of the human heart, that was the true weapon." Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the Emperor's throne world was dying. The Emperor sat alone in his golden hall, surrounded by silence. The virus had devoured his empire, his armies, even his own ships. The stars that once bowed to him were now dark. He looked into the void and saw his reflection, a ruler who had believed himself eternal, now forgotten. In his final moments, he whispered bitterly, "How could such a small world destroy me?" And as his palace crumbled into light, a voice seemed to echo through the fading air. A human voice, calm and strong. "Because we refused to kneel." The words haunted him as the throne collapsed, and with it the last memory of the Empire. Back on Earth, the seasons slowly returned. Grass began to grow over the battlefields. Rivers ran clear again. Humanity had lost much but gained something greater, the respect of the stars. From Mars to the moons of Jupiter, humans began to rebuild colonies. They carried the story of the war wherever they went. Children on far planets learned it as their first history lesson. It was said that every time a human settlement raised its flag, they whispered the same promise: "Never again shall we bow to tyrants." Evelyn grew old, her hair white as snow, but her spirit remained strong. On her final day, she stood once more on that same balcony where she had once watched the world burn. The sky was peaceful now. The scars of war had faded. A young child standing beside her asked softly, "Was it worth it?" Evelyn smiled faintly, tears shining in her eyes. "Freedom is always worth it," she said. "Even if it costs the stars." She looked to the heavens one last time and whispered, "We were small, but we stood tall. And somewhere far beyond the Milky Way, among the ruins of the fallen empire, the winds of space carried a whisper, a memory of courage that would never die. When Earth refused to kneel, the Empire's worlds were no more. Centuries passed, but the story of Earth never faded. Across the stars, in new worlds and distant colonies, the tale was told again and again, of a small blue planet that stood against the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. They called it the Age of Defiance, and its echo reached every corner of space. On the world of Nova Solara, a human child named Leon sat under a sky with two suns. She listened to her grandmother's voice as it painted the story in the air. "They came with fire and thunder," the old woman said softly, "and they demanded that Earth kneel. But Earth said no. And that one word, that one refusal, changed the stars forever." Leon's eyes were wide with wonder. Did the people of Earth have big ships? Did they have magic weapons? Her grandmother smiled, shaking her head. "No, child. They had courage and hope. That was all they needed." The stars above flickered gently as if listening. Long after the fall of the Zarathian Empire, the galaxy had begun to heal. The enslaved worlds were now free, building their own nations and dreaming their own futures. Trade routes reopened, and alliances were formed between races that had once been enemies. In the capital of the Galactic Union, a monument stood at the center of a vast plaza. It was simple, a tall pillar of white stone carved with the image of Earth surrounded by stars. Beneath it, the inscription read, "They refused to kneel, and taught us all to stand." Every year, millions came to see it. Some brought flowers, others brought stories. Many simply stood in silence, feeling the weight of what humanity had done. The monument was more than stone. It was a reminder that freedom was not a gift. It was something earned, sometimes with blood, sometimes with belief. In the halls of learning, students studied Earth's resistance not as war, but as a philosophy. Professors called it the human principle, the idea that dignity mattered more than survival. A young alien scholar named Tareen, whose people had once served the Empire, stood before her class and spoke with emotion. "The humans did not fight because they wanted to win," she said. "They fought because they refused to live on their knees. That spirit became a fire that burned the Empire to ashes." Her eyes shone as she looked at the star map of Earth glowing on the wall. "They were small," she whispered, "but they made the universe remember them." Back on Earth, now green and peaceful, the old wounds had long healed. Forests had reclaimed the battlefields. The ocean sparkled again. Cities stood tall, built not for war but for art and science. Humanity had become quiet explorers, traveling the stars not as conquerors, but as teachers. At the edge of the rebuilt Unity Hall, a group of children ran through a garden where statues of heroes stood among the flowers. They laughed as they played beneath the figure of Dr. Evelyn Ross, her eyes cast toward the heavens. The plaque at her feet read, "She reminded us that courage is not born in strength but in love." One of the children, a little boy, stopped and looked up at her statue. "Did she really save the world?" he asked. An older man tending the garden smiled gently. "No, son," he said. "She helped the world save itself." As centuries turned into millennia, Earth became a legend and then a myth. New civilizations rose among the stars far from the Milky Way. Entire species that had never seen humans still spoke of them. The stubborn, fragile beings who defied an empire. In the Great Library of Andromeda, a robotic historian recorded the final lines of its chronicle. "There once was a world, small and blue, that stood when all others fell. They were not gods nor giants, nor endless machines. They were human, and they refused to kneel." Far beyond the edge of the galaxy, in the silent dust where the Zarathian Empire had once ruled, nothing remained but ruins. Broken moons floated in darkness, their cities long forgotten. Yet sometimes, when the cosmic winds blew across the shattered worlds, a faint sound could almost be heard, a whisper of words, carried through eternity. "We are still here." It was as if the spirit of Earth itself had left an imprint on the stars, an invisible mark that would never fade. Back on Nova Solara, as the twin suns began to set, Leanne watched the sky turn golden blue. She held a small stone carved in the shape of Earth, a gift from her grandmother. "One day," she said softly, "I want to see where it all began." Her grandmother smiled. "Then follow the stars, little one. They will guide you home." Leanne looked up, her eyes full of light. Above her, among millions of shining worlds, one tiny blue spark still glowed, fragile, distant, but eternal. And in that glow lived the memory of every human who had ever stood tall, who had ever said no to tyranny, who had ever believed that even the smallest voice could change the fate of the stars. Because that was Earth's true legacy, not victory, not power, but the unbreakable will to stand when standing meant everything. And as long as that spirit lived on, in stories, in hearts, in the endless sea of stars, the Empire's defeat would never be forgotten. For the galaxy would always remember. When Earth refused to kneel, the Empire's worlds were no more.